All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to our congregation, we want to get to know you and share a part of your journey. If this place is already your spiritual home, welcome once more. We need one another, and it is good to be together again. Through the gifts of technology, we also gather virtually to celebrate community and connections as we lean into the values of justice, compassion, and reason. Welcome to all those who are joining us in this way today. Together, we learn the love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service this morning. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love.
Arise, O souls, arise.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Oh, good response. I'm glad that you all dug out your winter coats to join us today. We're also glad that the people joining us online are nice and warm at home. Now, Anthony has some guests that he would like to introduce right now.
Hi there. Oh, that works. It's working there. We have some guests in our choir this morning, and I want to make sure that we extend them a warm welcome. We have Jordan Ludy, who's been with us before in our bass section. Tanner Rose in the tenor section. And our very good friend Seth Golay is with us this morning. Thank you.
Now, we also want to recognize anyone who's here for the first time. If you are a first-time visitor, please raise your hand so that our ushers can bring you a swag bag. Yes, yes. Keep it up there until they get to you. That's wonderful. You are welcome here with all the identities you hold and in your fullness as a person. We hope that you bring your whole self to this time together. Fellow members, at the conclusion of the service, please say hello to our new folks. Welcome them, and it may be the beginning of a long friendship. Thank you. This morning. Our remembrance candle burns this morning in memory of Mary Lindsay. Our thoughts are with her husband, George Harris, and the rest of her family. We also acknowledge the loss to longtime member George Baggett. His brother, Bruce Baggett, passed away unexpectedly on October 4th, and the family will host a celebration of Bruce's life at noon on Saturday, November 4th, here at All Souls. Our thoughts are also with George and his family.
The trailing edge of summer warmth has lingered for as long as nature's fitness will permit. Now comes the dying season of the year, when the light declines day by day and the harvest is gathered to be made safe from winter storms. The time when the veil between the worlds grows thin and we, the living, sense the presence of our beloved dead. Be not afraid. Love and memory will do us no harm, but rather enrich our days with the benediction of the ancestors, those who went before and made us much of what we are through their instruction and example. Now the turning leaves show us again how beautiful it can be to let go. Let us embrace their lesson and the thought of death, our finitude and our fears, our loves and our losses, as essential to our shared humanity here on this turning planet in this autumn season of sacred memory. Come, let us ponder together the mystery of things and lift our hearts in gratitude and praise. In these shortening days, we kindle once more the familiar light of this chalice flame. In its glow, may we take comfort and rejoice as we seek connections and answers to guide us through the challenges of life and the struggles that come to us all from time to time.
Now, stand as you were able and join us as we affirm our covenant. Then remain standing for our first song. Goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we
have a seat, make yourself comfortable, and notice the people who are sitting around you, particularly those you did not come in with. And I'm going to invite you now to take a moment and think about our upcoming celebration of Halloween, and what is the element of Halloween that is the most meaningful or the most important to you, and what is that meaning that it has. And when you're ready, turn to someone near you and wish them a good morning, and share a little bit about what is important to you in the celebration of Halloween. And we'll give you a few minutes to share, and then Anthony will call us back together with some music. Keep in mind that you can always return to these conversations after the service is over. Blessed are those who take seriously the bonds of community, who know that the work of the church is the transformation of society, and who do not shrink from controversy, sacrifice, or change. Blessed are those who support the church and its work by their regular, sustained, and generous giving. May we never be satisfied to enjoy plenty so long as any are in want. May we express our gratitude for nature and life's gifts, not in words alone, but also in the purposes for which we live, in the kindliness of our deeds, and in the generosity of our giving. This morning's offering in support of the mission of this congregation will now be gratefully received.
Before we do the offertory, we'll let our children go off to their classes. We'll sing.
Our offering will now be gratefully received.
Now please join me as we dedicate our offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to dwell together, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
From the play Our Town by Thornton Wilder, Act 3. This is certainly an important part of Grover's Corners. It's on a hilltop, a windy hilltop, lots of sky, lots of clouds, often lots of sun and moon and stars. You come up here on a fine afternoon and you can see range on range of hills. Awful blue they are up here by Lake Sunapee, Lake Winnipesaukee, and way up, if you've got a glass, you can see the White Mountains and Mount Washington, where North Conway and Conway is. And of course, our favorite mountain, Mount Wyandotte. It's right here. And all these towns that lie around it, Jaffrey and East Jaffrey, and Peterborough, Dublin. Then there, quite a ways down, is Grover's Corners. Yes, beautiful spot up here. Mountain laurel, lilacs. I often wonder why people like to be buried in Woodlawn in Brooklyn when they might pass the same up here in New Hampshire. Over there are the old stones, 1670, 1680, strong-minded people that came a long way to be independent. In summer, people walk around here laughing at the funny words on the tombstones. It don't do any harm. And genealogists from Boston get paid by city people looking for their ancestors. They want to make sure they're daughters of the American Revolution or came over on the Mayflower. Well, I guess that don't do any harm either. Whenever you come near the human race, there's layers and layers of nonsense. Over there are some Civil War veterans, iron flags on their graves. New Hampshire boys had a notion that the Union ought to be kept together, though they'd never see more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, friends, the United States of America. The United States of America. And they went and died about it. This here is the part of the new cemetery. Here's your friend, Mrs. Gibbs. And let me see, here's Mr. Stinson. He was the organist at the Congregational Church. And Mrs. Swames, who enjoyed the wedding so much, you remember? Oh, and a lot of others. Editor Webb's boy, Wallace. His appendix burst while he was on a Boy Scout trip to Crawford Notch. Yes, an awful lot of sorrow has sort of quieted down up here. People with wild grief have brought their relatives up the hill. We all know how it is. And then time, sunny days, rainy days, and snow. We're all glad they're in a beautiful place and we're coming up here ourselves when our fit's over. Now, there's some things we all know, but we don't take them out and look at them very often. We all know that something is eternal. Arid, it ain't houses, it ain't names, and it ain't earth. It ain't even the stars. Everybody knows in their bones that something is eternal and that something has to do with human beings. All the greatest people ever lived have been telling that to us for 5,000 years. And yet you'd be surprised how people are always losing hold of it. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being. You know as well as I do that the dead don't stay interested in us for very long. Gradually, they lose hold of the earth and the ambitions they had, and the pleasures they had, and the things they suffered, and the people they loved. They get weaned away from the earth. That's the way I put it, weaned away. And they stay here while the earth part of them burns away, burns out. And all that time, they slowly get indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something that they feel is coming, something important and great. Aren't they waiting for the eternal part in them to come out clear? Some of the things they would say maybe will hurt your feelings, but that's the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser. All those terribly important things that kind of grow pale around here. And what's left when memory's gone? Your identity, Mrs. Smith.
This poem is entitled All Souls by May Sarton, a 20th century Belgian-American writer. Did someone say that there would be an end? An end, oh, an end to love and mourning. Such voices speak when sleep and waking blend, the cold, bleak voices of the early morning, when all the birds are dumb in dark November. Remember and forget, forget, remember. After the false night, warm, true voices wake. Voice of the dead that touches the coals living, through the pale sunlight once more gravely speak. Tell me again, while the last leaves are falling, dear child, what has been so interwoven cannot be raveled, nor the gift ungiven. Now the dead move through, all of us still glowing. Mother and child, lover and lover mated, are wound and bound together and in flowing. What has been plaited cannot be unplaited. Only the strands grow richer with each loss, and memory makes kings and queens of us. Dark into light, light into darkness, spin. When all the birds have flown to some real haven, we who find shelter in the warmth within, listen and feel new cherished, new forgiven, as the lost human voices speak through us and blend our complex love, our mourning, without end.
on tradition. This comes from G.K. Chesterton's book, Orthodoxy, Chapter 4, The Ethics of Elfland. Tradition means giving a vote to most obscure of all classes, our ancestors. It is the democracy of the dead. Chesterton goes on to say, tradition refuses to submit to the small and arrogant oligarchy of those who merely happen to be walking about. All Democrats object to men being disqualified by the accident of birth. Tradition objects to their being disqualified by the accident of death. Democracy tells us not to neglect a good man's opinion, even if he is our groom. Tradition asks us not to neglect a good man's opinion, even if he is our father.
E.C. Barnwell says that the dead have a pact with the living. G.K. Chesterton says that they are still part of any genuine democracy, casting their votes through the power of tradition. But Thornton Wilder disagrees. He tells us in the third act of the play Our Town that you know as well as I do that the dead don't stay interested in us living people for very long. Gradually they lose hold of the earth, the ambitions they had, and the pleasures they had, and the things they suffered, and the people they loved. They get weaned away from earth. That's the way I put it, weaned away. And they stay here while the earth part of them burns away, burns out. And all that time they slowly get indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something they feel is coming, something important and great. Aren't they waiting for the internal part of them to come out clear? There is some kind of pause between the end of this life and the start of eternity, he says. Our spiritual ancestors, the old-time Universalists, used to argue about this, you know. Some of them believed that everything that ever separated any of us from God and God's heavenly kingdom was part of the mess of the material world. And when death came to disconnect us from our earthly bodies and from everything material that we were attached to in life, only our pure spirits were left, which were then able to return immediately to the divine realm from which they originally came. Those who believed this were known as Death and Glory Universalists, because they believed that everyone who died went immediately to glory in heaven. Those who disagreed were called Restorationists, because they thought that it took time for souls to be released from the sins and attachments of one's bodily life, much as the Eastern traditions teach that the consequences of karma take time to be resolved. The Restorationists believe that every soul, all souls, would ultimately be reconciled and reunited with God, but perhaps only after a kind of cosmic timeout, while they learned the moral lessons they had neglected in their lives and became qualified for heaven and for God's approval. People have wondered about this question for a long time, perhaps ever since humans have observed the dissolution of our bodies after death, and they have asked if there was a way to speed up the process so that our beloved ones could get to wherever they were going faster and not have to hang around waiting so long. Christian doctrine during the Roman Catholic era adapted the idea of purgatory, a place-time in which souls could be purified of the unabsolved sins at the time of their death, which temporarily disqualified them from heaven, and where they could benefit from the prayers of their living advocates. As heirs of the Protestant Reformation, we are aware that this idea was subject to abuse. The church used believers' grief and fear that people they loved might be suffering to fundraise and to control behavior and limit questions until other interpretations arose which challenged the concept of suffering after death as superstition. These superstitions persist today in our Halloween traditions and our cultural fascination with the fiction of a zombie apocalypse. As a naturalist myself, I find assorted fictions interesting and thought-provoking, and I am certain of two things. First, that consciousness is a function of our human brain processes, and therefore, after the organic death of our bodies and our brains, personal consciousness ceases, and our experience becomes what it was before we were conceived and born, neither blissful nor painful, but non-existent. At the same time, I believe that Thornton Wilder has a point. It is very natural to feel that something as powerful as human personality and relationship cannot be so easily extinguished, and that there must be something that continues on after our deaths. And indeed there is, for love and memory are two of the most powerful influences that we know. Which means that anyone who has loved others or who has been beloved in life will continue to have an impact in this world for as long as they are remembered with affection and gratitude. In the same way, anyone who has left a mark of meanness or hatred will persist in the memory of anyone who they harmed and in the effects of their actions. Our only immortality lies in the effects of what we have done and the ways in which we are remembered. It's not that the dead can't let go of us, so much as that the living find it hard to let go of them and the inspiration of their example of work and care. This is the message of the old hymn, which reminds us of E.C. Barnwell's claim that the dead are not under the ground, but rather have an ever-present message to us, not just at Halloween, but at any season. Let's stand and sing together. The observance of Halloween has its origins in notions of the souls of those who have died being trapped in purgatory, and in the fear that it was only their earthly human consciousness which made them capable of self-restraint, care for others, and mercy. These are, after all, human values and human virtues, and it would be easy to suppose that spirits no longer constrained by the limitations of humanity and participation in community might more freely express all the darker urges that can beset us toward greed, self-indulgence, rage, and other destructive impulses. The hallowed evening that followed All Saints' Day and preceded a day of prayer for all souls was a time of particularly keen awareness of those who have died, when it was thought that spirits might be active and might seek to connect again with the living. Many cultures welcomed this thought and made it a festive time of rejoicing, hoping to be visited by their beloved dead and offering lavish temptations to invite the spirits to return and be honored. Taking time to celebrate the memories of the departed whose lives have blessed our own can be a joyful and nurturing spiritual practice, but it can also be accompanied by fear that welcoming and honoring some spirits will attract others who may be dangerous in their transition to inhuman status. Thus, the hallowed evening became filled with many charms for protection from evil spirits, such as wearing disguises in order to confuse any who might be seeking to do a specific individual harm, and carving faces into turnips or pumpkins to use as lanterns to mislead wandering, mischievous-minded spirits. Now, in case it is helpful to say it again, I am a naturalist and materialist, and I do not believe in ghosts or spirits, either benevolent or wicked. I do believe in human fears and follies, in sadness and wisdom. I do believe that wishful thinking is part of our emotional equipment, and I believe that our narrative inventiveness is an evolutionary survival technique that has enabled our species to succeed and thrive. So I'm in favor of the stories we tell about our continuing connections with the folks we have loved and our impulse to remember them, to remind ourselves that they have been our companions during the moments of our brief journey through life, and to honor what they taught us and what they gave us in the time that we shared. Part of what I know for sure is that we can only practice our humanity in communities where we are connected to other human beings, and that every human community that endures over time eventually becomes a community of mourners and of memory. For death, as we are reminded at this season, as it comes to all, rupturing the bonds that the living build with one another, and making all of us participants in that great poignant community of all souls, the living and the dead, which, as May Sarton suggests, the power of memory makes kings and queens of us. Remember death, dearly beloved. We will all of us die, you and me and everyone else here, no matter how much success we achieve, no matter how strong we are or how clever or how careful. Remember death whenever unkind or impatient words rise to your lips. Remember that they may be the last words you say to that person, because either you or they may be touched by that icy hand before you will see one another again. Remember death because our days are not infinite, neither do we know their number. And all the goodness of life that we would share and all the memories that we would leave behind must be made here and now. For truly I say to you, tomorrow is not promised to any of us. And remember death, for those who have passed through that veil have wisdom and comfort to teach us, if we will patiently welcome and honor their unseen presence in the counsels of our hearts. Remember death, for every time we say goodbye to those we love, our hearts rebel against the reality of it. But as the famous agnostic Robert Ingersoll once said, Every cradle asks us whence, and every coffin whither. From the wondrous tree of life, the buds and blossoms fall with the ripened fruit, and in the common bed of earth, patriarchs and babies sleep side by side. Maybe death gives all there is of worth to life. If those we press against our hearts and strain within our arms could never die, perhaps that love we feel would wither from the earth. It may be that the knowledge of this common fate treads out from the paths between our hearts the weeds of selfishness and hate. And I had rather live and love where death is king than have eternal life where love is not. Or, as Winnie the Pooh is said to have observed, how lucky am I to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard? Yes, my dear ones, how lucky we are. We release this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fires of commitment. These we send forth into the world beyond these walls and carry them in our minds and hearts until we are together again. My colleague and teacher, the Reverend David Bumbaugh, blessed memory, used to say, "Beneath all our diversity and behind all our differences, there is a unity of the Spirit that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time and death and the space between the stars." Let us go in peace.